if I understand it correctly, it would be better for Moscow to change its ambition to become a regional financial center instead of an international financial center. But the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for your question. It's setting the necessary ground for our presentation. Well, yes, but this doesn't mean that we are talking here about two different objectives. We are talking about gradual process here. So at the initial stage, we would like to see Moscow as a Russian financial center. Well, notionally speaking, for example, if ICE could be attracted somehow to Moscow, would be already great. So this is the first step. Then look at our colleagues around us, our neighboring countries, with whom we still have very strong economic cooperation and cultural background as well. So this could be our second step, second stage. So after we solve these two issues, I think we can already talk about getting to this IFC thing. So as my answer, let me just transfer to our considerations, because together with Resh, we would like to, so I'm talking about considerations of Ernst & Young, our considerations about what has to be done and whether we need to do anything to make Moscow this regional financial center. I understand that many presentations and speeches today were concentrated on our global perspectives, on our perception on the part of investors, and the drawbacks I hear about this lack of understanding, cultural understanding, then a wrong perception on the level of mass media, long perception of certain processes. This is not so when we talk about our neighboring countries. So in this case, I believe that such factors can really make us very attractive for our neighbors. Well, let me just move to my presentation. What I would like to say, the list you can see down here on this slide, all the financial platforms, of course, some of them, not all of them. So you can see our position here. Well, surely neither New York, nor London, nor even Shanghai, right now they are not our competitors for sure. We are not their competitor. If you look at different capitalization indices, well, I believe our reference group is Warsaw. Well, again, Warsaw, some Chinese platforms, we have not approached them yet. Istanbul, Dubai. So understanding who are our close competitors, if we understand that correctly, in this case we will be able to understand what are our real drawbacks and what are our real benefits. So let me comment upon the fact we have said that Brazil is, let's say, a little bit weaker competitor for us. But I have some statistics here. In the first half of 2012, capitalization of Russian companies about $700-something billion. For Brazilian countries, 7.5 trillion. So just compare that. So that is why let us not just say that we are just ahead of all our competitors here, ahead of Brazilian competitors. No, it is not so. And it is really great to look at retrospectively at their history and trying to find what were their what mistakes they have made so that we would not make them. So once again, moving to this regional concept, we've decided to choose 3 countries, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and Russia. And we looked at IPOs that take part on the part of the enterprises from these countries. Mostly they go for IPOs in London, in Hong Kong, New York. Surely we are not competitors to London in the coming year, in the short term. I think that right now we can talk about certain level of enterprises that are right now only thinking about going for IPOs. and representatives present here, they know how many bids for IPO have already been submitted, and I'm not talking about Gazprom level. I'm talking about smaller companies from 200 to 700 millions notionally. So this is the audience that we are interested in. Those are the people who do not need their office to be located at James Street. Those are people who can have their regional office, and they simply want to have an access to certain platform, and Moscow can give it to them. And most of these companies have already their offices in Russia, so we don't really need to think about attracting Ukrainian or Kazakh enterprises to Russia. I'm talking about medium size. They know that Russia is an attractive platform. So that is why we are not talking about the limitations that have been stated when we talk about competition with large financial centers, major financial centers. Another interesting fact, talking about syndicate credits. Here we have certain statistics for our neighboring countries. You can see that Russian banks, they are participating heavily in this field, and they occupy quite a nice niche. If we take foreign markets, of course, Russian banks are not represented there largely. So once again, we have contacts with our neighboring countries. So the soft force, it is out there in our economic cooperation, and I can also say that major market players, Russian market players, they have offices in almost all the CIS countries. So that is why we really have to think about this regional concept. So when we say that let's make Russia right now a local or regional center, it's okay. We have almost achieved this goal. In 2008, when they were talking about approving this concept of creating Russia as an international financial center, I can say that by the year 2010, we have already become a regional financial center. Of course, a little bad things, some number of bad things happening here because of the world crisis. It impeded our development further on as an international center. Well, major achievements in our concept development from the point of view of exchange infrastructure. So here we talk about joining NMVB and RTS as a unified Moscow exchange. Then we have given access to Euroclear and Clearstream to our bond market. And we are now expecting introduction of certain international standards to our financial reporting for public companies. So in this case, we can say that right now we have a certain almost clear vision of what we have to achieve in order to become an IFC. So together with our with everybody who is interested, with all the stakeholders, we can now go on further and try to introduce all that into our civil code. So new opportunities for us. A little bit egoistic from the point of view of Moscow, egoistic slide, but we have correct data here. We have to use the situation we find ourselves right now in. The crisis of 2008 or even 2009, I can say, this crisis raises great opportunities for Moscow. Whether we will be able to use them or not, that largely depends on us. If we talk about more strict regulation in Russia, it is much higher if we compare it to London or Frankfurt or New York. Well, lower credit ratings of major Western banks, that also was quite favorable for us, because subjectively our banks can perceive themselves in a better position now if compared to Western banks. So this is some kind of positive dynamics from the point of view of perception. So perhaps this is not our achievement, but still we can use the situation to our benefit. So right now they're trying to solve the issue with offshores. They're talking about Tobin tax being implemented. So those are plans on the federal level. So maybe, again, I would like to point it out, maybe those are not our own achievements, but we can still use the situation to our benefit. And I even know that right now, with unemployment rate growing in the West, many people from the West, many great specialists in the West are right now considering Russian Federation as a possible way to transfer, a possible location to transfer. So I think we have to catch the situation and use it to our benefit. So first of all, perhaps the most important slide in my presentation, you can see it right now. I think we are right now on the verge of a new crisis. Well, right now we don't really have that many stakeholders in the market, not that many companies out there in the exchange trading. Not many companies that are eager to use exchange liquidity in their operations. We have to attract these players. We can attract them from abroad. So this is the first source. And in this case, perhaps we are talking about companies from our neighboring countries, or we can also increase demand eternally. We have a large state sector. We have strategic sectors. We have, let's say, a certain view of privatization strategy on the internal market. So if we raise the amount of players in the market, we are going to just approach the Brazilian level of capitalization. And the other thing, we will be able to attract foreign investment players to our platform. And these companies can come to Russia and they will start locating their offices in Russia. So the next thing, we talk about cash outflow from Russia. I think it's a bit mythical. We can control it, we can reduce it. If we talk about this capital being the backbone of liquidity, if you remember my first slide, this will be one of the first factors that will actually give us an opportunity for fostering our position as an international financial center. Another fundamental issue, unfortunately, we forget about it very often. If you remember when we talked about financial fund, about long money, so right now when we are moving from this accumulating strategy in the pension fund, other than political component, this decision also has a financial component. So this is also certain battle that our Moscow government can participate in. So this is the question whether this long money will come to their market or not. Speculative capital is not something sustainable. Long money is the sustainable factor of financial markets. So if we have long money in the market will be sustainable, will be strong. So in this case, we have to accumulate around ourselves, let's say, a certain group with similar interests, and then we can go to investors and try to convince them that from the point of view of constitutional reforms, we will achieve a favorable environment for them. So now I can say that if we talk about our country becoming a regional financial center, so we have to foster our position as such and then go on into the international market. And from the point of view of CIS countries, they really have to understand clearly and transparently how our position is being formed.
The areas that we need to work on and that are being worked on definitely are going to yield some positive result. The integration of exchange infrastructure in partnership with international exchanges. I don't think that even the amalgamated exchange will be competitive. Even if it enters into a partnership, let's say, with the London exchange or New York exchange, I don't know Well, the German exchange, however, is close in terms of size to Moscow United Exchange. So I think some cooperation, some blocking there could be possible, and we have seen the trend in the West among exchanges that do exactly that. They enter into partnerships and do joint projects. Definitely, we need new financial instruments, derivatives in the Russian Federation. This is something that we do require in Russia. There is a lot of discussion in terms of what instruments can be used. We definitely need instruments linked to currencies of our neighboring countries. This is maybe the first instrument that we need. Another type of derivatives that could find a lot of use are derivatives, commodity-linked derivatives. They will definitely play a positive role, and their application is not complex. It's just a matter of good campaigning. Being able to state that, for example, the Moscow Exchange has this certain set of instruments that are traded. Compared to, for example, a stock exchange in Kiev, who might or might not have similar instruments compared to Moscow Exchange. The idea of the establishment of ruble as a reserve currency is already being implemented, and that will also definitely provide a impetus to the development of the Moscow as a financial center. In recent years, have seen a lot of infrastructure projects, like the Direct Investment Fund is pursuing a number of very interesting and attractive initiatives, and they could be used as the bridge for attracting more investors and more investment into the Russian economy. And I think after my presentation, I would maybe the most significant conclusions that I would like to see and to reiterate that we need to set a clear objective for the short term that needs to be transformed into a certain roadmap or in any other format that will be clear and that will set out the realistic objectives and that will identify the role of Moscow and Moscow government. That might involve a number of roadshows and similar activities. And the second point, that there is a need for focusing on bringing forces and resources together with our neighboring countries like Ukraine and Kazakhstan. These are the factors that could definitely help us to establish Moscow as a regional financial center and potentially the international financial center. Thank you.